So it's Stony Stratford's YouTube channel again, and it's the last in the present series. We're taking a break over the summer when we'll have some actual cricket. But what an interview to finish with. It's the first team skipper of Stony Stratford Cricket Club. It's Jamie Baxter. Hello, Jamie.
Hello, Andy.
How are you getting on? Apart from the hair.
Yeah, all right, mate. Not too bad. Cheers. Yeah, got a bit of a lockdown haircut going on, but looking forward to going playing some cricket. Hopefully I won't have to put it all up in an Alice band or anything.
I was just going to ask, how close are you to buying that Alice band, do you think?
Still as far away as I've ever been.
Good to know. Okay,
not something I will be doing.
Good.
But it is annoying.
just keep sweeping it back. It's absolutely on. I've messed mine up now, but you know that's
all add to the image. Just in the follow through, you just little scoop of the hair. It's all part of the game. Game's all in the head, Andy.
Absolutely is. Okay, so we've got a whole load of questions in here in the Stony Stratford beanie branded. I can't even remember what the words are. Beanie branded. Beanie tooth, right? You know the one. Anyway, they're all in there. So we'll get to those in a second. First of all, though, just explain, without this sounding too much like X Factor, your journey with Stony Stratford, where it all started.
So I started playing for Stony Stratford 12 years ago. I think I moved back down here. I'm originally from sort of the villages around here anyway, but I lived up in Leeds when I was at uni. Came back down in 2009 after working in Leeds for a bit, and moved to Wolverton. So I joined Stony Stratford, obviously on the doorstep. I knew a couple of people who played for the club at that point, who then left. I assume nothing to do with me just joining. But I joined there. I spoke to the then chairman, who is now cricket manager, Smudge, and he was captain of the fourth 11. So I only played fourth 11 because he was the only one I spoke to. So I played fourth 11 for the first year at least, and then just gradually through the years sort of went through threes, twos, and then ones a little while ago. Yeah.
And did you play any serious cricket at university? Because isn't Leeds part of the combined universities setup?
Yeah. Depends what you define serious cricket.
Well, what did you do at Leeds?
Yeah, it's the part of the MCCU thing. Oh, sorry, I've lost your signal a bit there. But yeah, it's part of the MCCU or UCCE, I think it was called then. But yeah, I never got into that team, but I played Leeds Uni ones, played ones and twos, played second 11 cricket with Toby, Roland, Jones, who then went on to play for England. At the time, you were going, why are you playing second 11? So we had some good players go through there. Harry Gurney played for us, and TRJ, and some guys who went on and played a bit of England stuff. So a few county players went through. It was a good standard. Good first. I'd say actually the university first team cricket is probably still the best standard I've played.
Now, I always ask this question of guys who have played with pros. When you were playing with them, could you tell that they were going to go on and make it?
I remember having a net with Harry Gurney, and I didn't see the first four. So they're just, one of those nets where the back of the net is really close to the wall. So you leave one outside of stump, or in my case, you haven't seen it and it's just passed you by. And it comes back, and that's the first time you see it. He was slippery. I think a lot of those guys were already at least playing second 11, county second 11 stuff at that stage. So you kind of thought they would probably play some first class cricket at least.
Okay, and did you ever get any chances yourself or did you ever feel you were close to the pro game?
Nope. I think when I was quite young, there was Terry Jenner, who was Shane Warne's sort of coach and mentor for many years. He came over to England and ran a leg spin program. He picked out like 10. He went around the country basically. But you had a weekend there were 10 leg spinners from the age of about 12 to 18 in the country who went, and we spent a week in Taunton at the school there. Amazing facilities. You spend a week basically just bowling over and over again. 5 days, just sort of bit of fitness, and then just mainly bowling and cricket in general. But a lot of it was just net bowling and stuff. We played lots of games, and so that was probably the closest I got in terms of a pathway. Was I did that 3 years in a row, where I was part of that 10 who got selected as sort of some of the best young leg spinners, I guess. But was probably a couple of people who went. Adil Rashid was part of that, so he went through. A guy called Mark Lawson, who was very good, played for Yorkshire a little bit. A guy, Michael Monday, who played for Somerset, was in that. But yeah, in England, it's quite difficult to be successful bowling leg spinner. I think probably if you did it now with 2020 and how successful leg spinners are now in that game, you might have a bit more success with them. I think sides are more willing to bring on a leg spinner because they've proved so successful in the shorter format. At the time, it was all about trying to get one to play for England in Test match.
So, what was Terry Jenner like? Because, as you say, he's sort of Shane Warne's hero, but there are stories about him being slightly unorthodox, maybe in his approach, and obviously he was a fair leg spinner in his day as well. What was he like?
I thought he was actually a brilliant coach. He's very clear about what he wants you to do, which is all. Whenever there's any coach, you talk any sport. I remember talking to some of the rugby players about like Eddie Jones and stuff. Just so clear about what he wants from you. That's the most important thing. It's the easiest thing as a player. And so he had a process of like how a leg spin should bowl. So it's a bit different to like coaching now. I think you find your own way, and the coach will help you out with that. Jenner was very much, this is how you should bowl leg spin. So he had a really prescribed approach to it. And it's very much like when you see how Adil Rashid bowls, that kind of step up, high arm, big follow through, loss of overspin, stuff like that. That is exactly how he wanted you to bowl. And he is the sort of the main student basically. And so he'd be drilling you on that. But as a player, he's very motivated. I mean, he's a big Australian. He's very loud. He's in your face. He's not shy in any way. So yeah, if he wants you to do something, you do it.
Well, I'm impressed. We've been talking for about 5 minutes, and you've mentioned that you've played with 3 international cricketers, which is not a bad start, I think. Let's see what we've got when we go.
I can name people I've played with or played against, but yeah, just
that's a bit
way off my level.
It's a bit like me meeting politicians, you know. I meet them and I shake hands with them, and then they move on and they have the interesting life. But fair play as far as your cricket goes. Let's see what they've got in the hats. Oh, this is something you told me, I think, a while ago. Your first team skipper at Stony, but apparently you wanted to be second team skipper or something like that.
Well, I didn't want to be second team skipper at the time because anyway. Well, when I became first team skipper, which was 2018 was my first year of that, maybe 17, 18. I was playing in the twos at the time. At the end of that season, I played all the games in the twos. I think all of the teams got relegated pretty much. A lot of people left the first team, and we were looking for new captains. I think of most teams, it was a lot of people had left or said they don't want to be captain anymore and things like that. Belly was, who you've interviewed before, was captain, was the cricket manager. So he was sort of trying to find captains and sort things out over that winter. And it was only like into the new year that he asked me if I wanted to be second team captain. And I said no, because especially with the people leaving, I was like, I've got a good chance of playing a lot of first team cricket, and I'd like to carry on playing first team cricket for as long as I can, and until I'm not good enough, basically. And so he was fair enough, and then came back to me a little bit later saying, do you want to be first team captain? And I just sort of laughed it off, to be honest, because I wasn't even in the first team. So how could I be first team captain? I don't want to be selected based on the fact that I'm captain and don't actually do anything in the side. And 4 years later, that's exactly what I do. only bowl if it's absolutely ragging, and I only bat if we've had a collapse, basically. But still enjoying it. But yeah, basically, I was I think I was asked about the fourth time of asking. I said, "Okay, go on then." And it's a huge honour to be made first team captain. There are a lot of very good players, very good captains who've done it before. You look up on the board in the changing room in the clubhouse, and you see all the people who've gone before you. It's quite humbling. It's quite nice. It's a really nice thing to do, to be able to lead your team out. I think in any level, playing at any team, when you lead your side out, you do feel a bit of pride. So when it's the first team of a club that you love, it's really nice.
Right. Okay. Let's delve back in and see what we've got here. Wait. You say you just turn up and you bowl a bit of leg spin when it's ragging and that you don't bat, but there was a 98 not out, wasn't there, at one point? Talk us through that.
I want to say that's in a friendly.
It wasn't.
It was against Horton House. They were a decent side, but yeah, I just slugged a few.
Nothing wrong with that.
Got away with a few. Basically kept on hitting it over extra cover, and they never put a fielder there. So I do remember the last ball though. I didn't know what was on, and apparently talking to the guys on the benches, they made an executive decision not to tell me what was on, and then changed that with the last ball saying you're on 98. And so yeah, we batting first, wickets in hand. So it was the last ball of the innings. And I got 2 leg byes, and the umpire asked if I'd hit it.
And you didn't say yes?
I said no. I've never scored 100 at any level.
That's probably still better than my 98 last summer when I got out to a 12-year-old. And I was fully aware that I was a 98, and I just couldn't get him away. So, you had
several chances as well.
Sorry?
You had several chances to get it as well. You just couldn't get him.
I think I was 96 at the start of the over, and people on the side, like, this was a friendly for Shemley, I think, and people on the side were saying, "You've got 96," and I was like, "I know, because I count. I'm one of these annoying people who knows exactly."
Up to 96 as well. I've heard people count the first 20 or something, but
I wish, Jamie, there was a way I could stop myself from doing it, but every time I play, so it's like I'm 1 not out, I'm 2 not out, I'm 3 not out, and it's really annoying because I can't stop and think about the game. But this is about you, not about me.
That probably helps. But you're a batsman, you think about these things. I just think about when can I have a bowl.
Well, this is true. So career low light is the next one. We'll do career highlight as well. I mean, if there isn't a low light, we can just focus on the positives.
I mean, there are lowlights. There's a lot of lowlights, actually. It's hard to pick. I mean, as a leg spinner, there's a hell of a lot of lowlights because you get parked in the bushes several times, or usually beyond the bushes. When you get hit for a 6 as a leg spinner, it happens a lot, but also it tends to go further because people have a real go at you. Because when you loop the ball up and you bowl as slowly as I do, everyone's looking at it going, "I'm going to hit this bloke miles." You know that the whole opposition are all sitting there going, "I'm going to wallop this bloke." And any leg spinner or any spin bowler pretty much listening to this will agree. But they always I always sort of brush those off, to be honest. As a leg spinner, you just get used to being hit. If you get hit for 3 sixes, then get them out, then you've won. So it doesn't really matter. Low light for me, the one that really sticks in my mind, I remember the season before I got made captain, I was saying I was playing for the twos, and all of our teams were really struggling down the bottom, and we were really up against relegation. I remember trying so hard that season, and I was batting in the middle order in the twos, so I was getting runs, I was getting wickets, but obviously just not quite enough to win games or get enough points. And we, on the last game of the season, I can't remember whether we even, I think we may have lost in the end. Oh yeah, it was away at Wollaston, and rained. It was a rain affected game. It was all, but it was so important to us. I remember getting some runs, but just getting out. No, we got up to a reasonable total, and then just couldn't, nearly bowled them out, just couldn't quite, and they just crept over the line and just beat us, and that was basically the last nail in the coffin for us. And we got sent down, and that was horrible. Really desperate moment. Yeah.
All right, flip that one around. Career highlight.
one regret for Stoney is that I've never been promoted or won a league. I've never been in a side that's won a league. It was a great moment for the Threes last year, the side you were in, and did well for, and won that cup. And we were in the final, and we lost on the last ball. And that was, it's not a low light because it was a great season, but it was hard to take. And so I'd like the highlight to be winning a league, but there isn't one of those. I mean, had a couple of good moments for Stoney. Obviously, being made first team captain is a very proud moment. But given I've just told you how many times I had to be asked to do it, I can't really choose that. I think there was a game at home at Campbell Park for the first team. I think it might have been first game of the season, and it was very much at the time when we were playing in the Prem, and I was in and out of the side at best, and we scored 120, maybe 130, I think.
That's not much.
Not a great score at Campbell, although everyone thinks it's a road and no one ever gets any runs there. And then Burton were 80 for 1, I think they were, and then I got put on as usual, last resort, put the leg spinner on. It's usually the way I do it to myself as well as captain. I always put myself on as a last resort. But yeah, got a couple of wickets straight away, and ended up with 4 for. And Habib was bowling at the other end. Habib Ullah, who was a tremendous bowler for Stoney, used to open the bowling, but then come back and he'd get quicker as his spell got on. Like his 17th over was absolute wheels. And he got a real rhythm going, and he took 4 for the other end. He took like 4 for 20. I took 4 for 20, and we bowled him out for about 112, like 1 by 20 runs, in a real completely turned that match around, and got obviously some crucial points for us. That was good.
Okay, this next question is purely based on me being self-indulgent for a second. When I found out that your dad was Peter Baxter, Test match special, etc., I got really, really excited. I probably bored him to death at the awards evening a couple of years ago by chatting to him about it. But what was it like having, and just indulge me on this one, what was it like having a dad on TMS? Did you have blowers knocking on the door every 5 minutes, or was it all a bit more mundane than that?
I mean, I know blowers very well. Blowers often has stayed with us and things like that. People, the one that sticks in my mind is actually Tony Cozier. Used to stay with Dad during the Test matches, especially when the Test matches were down in London. Tony Cozier was staying. TC was, sadly passed away a couple of years ago, probably a bit longer now. But was the nicest man I think I've ever met. Absolutely wonderful bloke. So you do get these people coming over. I remember Brian Johnson as a kid. He would always come over and be sort of pulling coins out of my ear and things like that. He used to do a thing where he fold his ear inside out, or fold it in on itself, and then like give a little wink and it would ping back open. He was a brilliantly fun man. But yeah, I mean, I get it. My dad is my dad. I don't know what it's like to have another dad. So I mean, there are positives and negatives. There's, I got to go and see some cricket occasionally. Really, just the only ones we really got dragged along to were like going to Northants County Ground and collecting. Like I remember collecting sticker books and things like that for when they did a cricket Panini sticker book. I bet you would have had one of those, Andy.
I didn't. I had a football one, but I mean, I've got one. I mean, this is right.
Cricket 95 sticker book.
Alex Stewart on the front, by the looks of it. With
Alex Stewart on the front.
Not full shot.
Joey Benjamin.
Oh yeah, the late great.
I haven't even finished it. Starts with Derbyshire. Yeah, so going down to the Northamptonshire County Ground and basically filling those out. And like the Australian touring team, occasionally I'd get things like, say, in a touring team or something like that. I'd be able to meet some of the players and things like that because I'd obviously through Dad, which was always really, really fun. But then obviously, he was away all winter basically. Back when tours were 4 months. I assume he went out on a boat. I don't know. He's very old. And so he'd be gone for several months. So yeah, bit of both.
Would you have been old enough to remember the leg over incident? That was 91, I think.
I was 5, so I don't remember it so much, but I remember my dad telling the story at every single dinner party, even just a quiet moment over a curry on a Friday night or something like that, over your fish and chips. It's all the stories that, because obviously Dad went on stage as well after he retired. 2007 he retired. He's been on stage with Blowers a bit, done a few shows. It's almost like he forgets he's not on stage, so he'll still run through the stories. But he is very entertaining with those things. So yeah.
Good stuff. Let's see what's in the hat again. You might have mentioned this already, actually, as often happens with these things. Best player played against and best player played with.
Yeah. So best player played against. Played against some good players. I'm sort of good by association, where not good myself, but I've played against some good people. So you drop those into stories and people think, oh, this guy can play. I remember playing Alistair Cook at Bedford School, and I can't remember if we were playing against Essex for Bedfordshire, because Bedfordshire, we played a few home games at Bedford School. And I remember I think we played against Essex, and Alistair Cook was playing for Essex, but he went to Bedford School. So it was a bit of a home game for him. Or if we had a school game and we were playing against Bedford School, but I just remember him sweeping me every ball for 4 every time. But actually, the one that sticks in my mind is I played a county. It would have been an under-15s game, maybe for Bedfordshire, against a touring Leinster side from Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
They'd come over and they were playing all sorts of counties around, and they scored 225. And 175 of those were from a tiny little bloke called Eoin Morgan, who was
happened to him?
absolutely mint. He hit the ball so hard. And I remember we had an absolute plum of a captain. He's just a fool. I can't remember who it was, but I just remember. But he had in like close fielders because the other batsmen weren't so great. And I was going, hey, this guy's amazing. You just need everyone out. I remember being at short cover and Morgan just going bang and slapping these things through me against the shins. Eventually, just going, but don't fancy that. You're 15 years old. He was very good. He was one of the ones where you go, he's very, very good, and you just see the quality of him straight away.
Did you turn your arm over against him?
Yeah, I probably went a long way. I've scrubbed that from my memory, Andy.
That's very sensible. Right, back into the
it won't have gone well.
What we've got here. So best player played with.
Oh yeah, I didn't answer that. I'll probably go back to the Toby Roland Jones at uni. Just to remember his attitude, the fact that he was playing first team cricket. Obviously, his brother was captain of the MCCU and UCCE side. So I remember we gave him at the end of his season thing. We gave him the Mark Waugh Award for the lesser younger brother, because his big brother was better than him. And then obviously Toby went on and played for England. And unfortunately, he's had quite a short England career where he really should have, given that he's still got a bowling average of 20 or something at Test level. So he's been very unlucky not to get a better chance and another chance. But just his intent when he played at second team level, you sort of think that he's too good for this. Maybe he'll just take a bit of an easy ride. But I remember him like shouting at himself. Really, would have been horrible for the whatever third team that we were playing against. The batsman, they get this guy berating himself for not showing enough intent, and not following through and stuff. So he used to really get himself up, and for a young age to be that kind of professionally minded, I thought was really impressive. And he just ploughed through the opposition. I think 6 or 7.
Okay, so talk to us about the choice to become a leg spinner. Is there ever a time when you're standing there and the ball is disappearing out of the park that you wish that you bowled 85 mile an hour wheels? And what was it that got you into leg spin? Was it Shane Warne when you were growing up?
It's a good question. I've always bowled a leg spin. I think it's just what came out naturally as a
It's really
toddler,
hard, isn't it?
Obviously, in my life, as you can imagine, in my household, that cricket was obviously it was always on, it was always around. So I always played cricket, and like as a toddler, basically, I was playing cricket. But no, I've always loved it, and I think just naturally I bowled a bit of leg spin, just sort of went that way. I always at junior level bowled leg spin, but at junior level it's easy because everyone says it's really hard. But if you turn the ball a little bit, no one can play it. Yeah. It's only when you grow up and they start walking down and just smacking it on the full toss that you're like, oh, I'm going to have to think about this. But yeah, I used to just, up until only a few years ago, really, it would be slow and just turn it as much as possible. And now I barely turn it at all because in league cricket it's slightly different. But you get more wickets just by bowling straight, to be honest. But yeah, I've always bowled leg spin. I think anyone would be lying if they didn't say that at some point they wanted to bowl. Like if you could bowl at 85 to 90 miles an hour, you would. Obviously, it looks really fun and it's cool. But given that I can't, might as well. Also, you've always got an excuse, haven't you, bowling leg spin? But if you bowl rubbish, it's like, yeah, but it's the hardest one to do. So you can always get away with it.
So, what did you make of Shane Warne then? Because obviously, for a while before Warne came along, and obviously 1993 was the big series where he came over to England, the Gatting ball. Before that, I mean, in England you had Ian Salisbury, who bowled a little bit of it for a while, bless him.
Yeah, wasn't it?
And before that, I'm trying to think. You almost go back to Terry Jenner in this, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah, there's not a lot of leg spin, is there, before that?
Benno as well, but other than that,
you had Mushtaq Mohammed before that, and then at the same time as Warne, you had Mushtaq Ahmed.
Yeah.
Who was a brilliant bowling action. He used to come in and then spear them through and just bowl that way or that way. It was almost like a modern, like an olden times Rashid Khan, Mushtaq Ahmed, because I remember when he played for Sussex for years with that wonderful massive beard and stripe, and just away and in, and just looked like how would you play that? But yeah, Warne was absolutely brilliant. Like he absolutely would have been why I carried on with leg spin, or at least it may have even been why I started. And I don't know. Obviously, he would have come over in '93.
Yeah.
So I was 7. So yeah, formative years. It was all Warne, and like up until he retired, just always watching. I mean, in the 2005 Ashes, like obviously, which is what any Englishman of my age or Australian will refer to as the greatest series. Obviously, you think of all the great England bits and the Strauss catch and the Flintoff over and stuff like this, but in amongst all of that is Warne, and he's just sensational throughout that series. He took 40 wickets in that series and just turned it so much that it's just he's always been able to turn the ball a lot, which was always just looked like a fun thing to do. So it definitely had an influence. Yeah.
So if you got a lot from watching him, did you, when you played in schools games, did you go around talking about having your Zuta and having your different varieties?
Yeah, we said before, half the game is in the mind. Even if you haven't got a Zuta, you got to tell the batsman you've got one. Just so he's watching out for somebody else, and really, it's just another slow leg break. But his variations. I mean, the thing about Warne is actually he used to have a really good googly. And then for years, he didn't really bother with much variation. Just bowls leg breaks, and some of them really go, and some of them don't go as much. And that can be as dangerous as anything. But yeah, I remember later on in his career, he very much had that sort of slider that he pushed out the hand, which I'm still trying to work on. But apart from getting James Pickles out in the nets with it, I haven't really succeeded with anyone else, to be honest.
Well, that's a start, I think. I mean, if we look at the more modern leg spinners, obviously you've mentioned Rashid Khan, Adil Rashid as well. I mean, as a fan of the arts, would you like to have seen Rashid in the Indian Test series, or can you understand why now he's looked at the state of his body and also the state of his bank balance, I'd imagine, with what you can earn from T20 cricket? Can you understand why he's perhaps reticent to play the longer form?
Where Adil Rashid is with his career, it kind of makes sense to do what he's doing, which is focusing on white ball cricket. I think with anyone who said that who stopped playing red ball cricket at all for their county, that they then aren't really eligible to play Test cricket. I don't understand how you can, because it's a very different art. I can't remember who I heard talking about spin bowling. It may have been Shane Warne actually talking recently about kind of the different process of bowling spin in one-day cricket and in Test cricket. And it is very different. While you sort of look at someone bowling, it's a bit like batting as well. You see people constantly running it down third man. You do that in a Test match, you just get caught for a slip or gully or something. Or you just nick off and the ball's doing a bit more. But in terms of spin bowling, you can, in a one-day context, you bowl attackingly, you bowl in an attacking manner with defensive fields. And in Test matches, you bowl with an attacking field, but you bowl defensively, which makes that perfect sense. It's you just want to bowl your best ball over and over and over again. Rashid doesn't do that, and that's not his skill. His skill is bowling variations. So he's got an absolutely amazing wrong and always has done. When I was talking about the Jenner camp, I just remember this kid's wrong and it was unbelievable. Came carving back in at you. It's just like, it was really hard to pick as well. As he's proved throughout his career, it's a sensational ball, and it's that kind of thing that's more advantageous in one-day cricket. And obviously, if you're going to be able to make loads of money playing T20, I don't understand how he's not picked up in the IPL. Some massive money's gone out to players and not gone to Adil Rashid. I know there's a lot of spinners, obviously, there's local spinners from India that I guess get the contracts instead, because you have to fork out a bit of money for Adil. But seems an odd choice for him not to be there, given how he's proved how good he is at that form of the game.
So, if you can bowl it, does that mean you can bat against it?
Well, the googly.
Well, just leg spin in general. I mean,
just leg spin.
Can you pick it? I mean, obviously it depends.
Yeah, I can pick it. Yeah, you don't get it that often though, do you? In league cricket, there's not a huge amount of leg spinners. There's the odd one, but I mean, there's sort of a lot of batsmen I think don't watch the ball out the hand. I always watch it out the hand, which gives you at least most of a clue. And we're not playing against top level spin bowlers where it's going to be really hard to pick. It's generally easier at our level. It's a little bit slower. You can read it off the pitch. But essentially, for leg spin, it's like to bat against it, you wait on the back foot and slap it through the covers until they bowl full enough for you to drive it. But because as a bowler, I'm trying to get you to drive. Basically, most of the time, I want you on the front foot. I want you reaching for it. So if I'm bowling a length that you're reaching for, that's great. But you could, as a batsman, you're looking to sit back, so you've got time to see what it does and then play it. But yeah, whenever anyone use their feet, comes down, always think at club level, I've got a chance. If it's like Michael Clark coming down at me, then I probably haven't got a chance. But at club level, if someone comes running down the pitch and I'm turning it, it's like, well, probably got a chance of getting out. So you always think, I think also I can't sweep very well, but any batsman that comes out and is immediately good at the sweep shot against any spin bowler, I think, you go, we're in a bit of trouble here, because what they sweep is essentially your good ball. That's the ball you're landing exactly where you want to land it, but I'm reaching on the front foot. But instead of going like this, they're going and taking you for it's one out to the sweeper or it's going for four. And that's always a moment when you see someone playing it very well, that you go, he's got a good sweep shot. This is going to be tough.
Okay. During lockdown, I think you did a video. I think you did a couple of videos, one on captaincy and one on how to bowl leg spin, which I enjoyed, and I'm sure people watching this video now will remember that as well. So I'm trying to think if there are any good young leg spinners at the club. Josie, I think, springs to mind in our third.
There's a few good young leg spinners. Yeah, I've done a bit of coaching with some of them.
And young Daniel
14s as
well. So I was just thinking on that. When it comes to you having to coach people to bowl leg spin, if there was one piece of advice other than try and bowl 75 mile an hour if you can, what would you say to our younger leg spinners? What would be the advice?
The one thing to say,
or two or three,
because essentially you've got to enjoy it. Because as I said, you will get hit quite a lot. because if you're tossing it up, you're going to get hit. So you're going to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy the fight. You've got to enjoy the battle with the batsman. Because that's essentially what you're entering into, and you've got to be aware of that. That you're gonna, if you're bowling slow, generally they're going to get after you. You're going to want to get after you. Otherwise, you're on top, basically. But someone's going to want to get after you, and you've got to embrace that. Because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to bowl. So that's kind of mentally the main thing, without getting into all the physics of it and everything like that. But that, and I'd say at a young age as well, spin the ball, because there's a lot of spinners on TV and in one-day cricket. And I've just said, like, now I play the higher level I get, I feel like I have to spin the ball less because it's more about being accurate. But at a younger age, I think if you spin the ball, you've got a great chance of taking loads of wickets, and that will keep your enjoyment of it up, because most batsmen at that level, at junior level, and as you go through the sort of lower league teams, when you're playing adult cricket, you turn the ball, it's just confusing the batsman. They're not as skillful as a sort of higher level batsman at managing with that. And so it's a difficult thing. It's something that people don't come across as much. So yeah, try and spin it as much as you can and enjoy it.
And what happens if you get the yips? Is that something you've gone through yourself at all? When I've
had about 8 different run-ups and things like that. Now I don't even mark one out. I was thinking, I've bowled so many times, millions of balls. I feel like I don't need a run-up. So I've dispensed with a run-up a couple of years ago. And essentially it's only, I'm bowling legs. I don't need to leg it in. There's no need to exert yourself. So it's really just the last few steps that are important. And you've done it so many times. It's just the last few steps. I've never quite had the yips where you properly can't release it. I've seen it happen on other players, and it's almost like a scary thing. But I've had like issues with technique where I've ended up going, I'm trying to turn it as much as possible, and absolutely nothing is happening, or you're just not getting the consistency. And actually, I've gone back to some coaching that I've always done before, which is sort of Jenner style, because that is essentially my style of bowling, because that's how I was coached. Which is completely take your run up out of it. So you're just standing there with the ball, and you just stand there as you take it right back to the beginning, and you literally just lob a few leg breaks down. Because if you stand side on and do this, it turns so much, because you essentially you're just turning it with your wrist. There's nothing else to get in the way, and you're bowling slowly and stuff. So that then gives you confidence, because you can see the ball landing in the right place and turning, and then you just bring in more elements. So you sort of come through and you step into it, and you step through, and then you start adding a couple of steps in your run. And then once you've got the 2 steps in the action, all you need, the rest of it's just a kind of distraction almost. You just need to be able to have you need to arrive at the crease with a little bit of momentum. But other than that, as long as you've got that bit, the action and the couple of approaches, then that's fine. So I generally take it back to like, it's absolute bare bones and just toss a few leg breaks. Because sometimes like, the ball doesn't come out of the hand, sticks in your hand and things like that. So you just spend a bit more time at the end of your run-up just spinning the ball from hand to hand. So you've got a cricket ball, it's over there. But yeah, you've got to spin the ball from hand to hand a bit more, just so you can feel it coming out of your hand. With leg spin, there's so much that can go wrong there. It's not, off spin is just this. Whereas with leg spin, it sort of has to, you've got to cock your wrist, you've got to bring it over the top, and there's a few bits where you could drag down, your action can come down here. But if you feel the ball coming out of your hand nicely, you just have that you have that confidence that will happen again when you go to bowl it. That's probably what you need to do. As I say, just taking that moment at the end of the run.
So is that why spinners in general tend to go through situations like the yips? Because as you say, there is so much that can go wrong.
I think there's a bit more with a fast bowler. It's coming out the front of your hand. Right? It's easy, right? Must be. I don't know. I've never had any pace, but if you run up and do that, I know obviously it can go wrong because you can get the ball that's really swinging and stuff like that, and then you can't really control it. But you've got the option of just going cross seam, and as long as essentially it's straight lines, it's coming up and down and through. With spin, there's a bit more. You're a bit more side on. There's a pivot. There's a rotation. and there's some things it can get, as you say, it can get stuck in your hand where you're just dragging it down. You can, suddenly your release point is too high and you're rolling full tosses. There's an arc of it. I like to say there's just a lot more guile and intelligence that goes with spin bowling rather than the cavemen that bowl. It's some serious enemies.
Hello to any of those cavemen who are watching tonight. So do you ever do, I think you get all these days, it's a lot easier to find the pros talking about stuff on YouTube and things like that. And one of the things that spinners at the top level mention is when they know they're at their best with their game, their spin bowling game, they can go through their whole action blindfolded and still land the ball in the right place. Is that something that you've ever been able to do?
I've never blindfolded myself. I feel that'd be dangerous for anyone anywhere near me. I mean, most of the time I'm not that in control of where it's going. So blindfolding myself would be a great mistake. You do think I have in the maybe 2 occasions in my whole life where I've actually felt in good rhythm. You do feel it's really great feeling. I think with any bowler, probably with the batsman as well, when you're in confidence and you're in the groove. But you do feel you have this huge amount of confidence that whatever you do, you'll be landing it in the right place. So, and that's when you can start going. You start then really toying with the batsman because you know where it's going to be. You've got a confidence in that, so you know that I'm going to turn this one a bit more. I'm going to slide this one on a bit. I'm going to bowl in the googly now, and but all that confidence and stuff is it's all just manufactured, isn't it? You have to work to get there. You don't just turn up. I think a lot of club players will just turn up and just hope it will happen that day. Like they will play terribly the week before and they can't land one, and then they'll turn up the next day and be like, well, the next Saturday, without putting in any work and go, oh, it'll probably happen today, or that's incredible confidence, but very rarely works out that way. Usually you got to work and you've got to build the confidence by bowling well, and then you're able to do that.
Well, I
haven't blindfolded myself.
Well, I can vouch from the amount of times I've gone down to the nets and seen you just bowling and bowling and bowling, and yet at the same time remembering that you're part of a club. And I remember one time turning up and you were giving us fielding practice, like a bunch of us from the third team. And as somebody who was relatively new to the club at the time, I really appreciated that sort of a welcome. So that was really, really good. So thank you very much for that. I've got one more question out of
I was just waiting for you to give me a few catches, but it never happened, did it?
I don't hit the ball that far or in the air, so you'd have been waiting a long time.
If you hit the ball in the air, you'll go far.
What's been the most surprising thing that captaincy has taught you? When the Jamie Baxter self-help book comes out, what's that going to be all about, do you think?
Ooh. It does teach you. I think as a player, you definitely play the game. I've always been a player who thinks about the team, thinks about fielding and positions and tactics side of it. But you're always you sort of thinking about your own game and mainly and what you can bring to the side. At times as captain, I almost forget I'm playing. I forget to I could bowl here. You almost just it's like you're playing champ manager and you're just trying to sort of organise the pieces, and you forget you're actually one of the pieces. That can happen a few times, but I think the more close situations that happen in a game, I think the first game I played as first team captain, we went down to it got a bit hectic towards the end. They were getting away from us, and actually I felt I was a bit scrambled. And the more of those situations that you get, the more comfortable you get with them, and you sort of it's tough to take time out of the game because you're usually getting chivvied by the umpires to up to overrate things like that. But just having those kind of plans already formed in your head, so that you know who you're going to for certain situations, and I think just having that planning, but that brings a level of calm in those situations. And I think every player wants to see their captain calm. And so even if on the inside you're absolutely bricking it and you have no clue what you're doing, which is like most of the time, and you're just making it up, as long as you look like you're in control of the situation, I think that's half the battle, to be honest. Because the players, the rest of the players, certainly in my team, the rest of the players are the ones who do bulk of the heavy lifting. I'm certainly not one of the better players. Most of the other players are the ones who will score most of the runs and take most of the wickets. So it's really, what can I do to support them and to make sure that they play as best as they can? And I think having a calm captain probably helps. Hope it does anyway.
Okay, so to wrap up, because I think we're getting to the 45 minutes. 2021, it looks like, fingers crossed, we're all going to get a full season. So from your point of view, what would you like to achieve in 2021?
I want to do what so we set out to do when we first came down to Division 1, which is to win the league. And that is the absolute focus for the first team this year. We believe we are the best team in that league. We've beaten all of the other teams at one point or another, and sometimes very comfortably. It's just stringing it together over the course of the season so that we're consistent enough to be top of the league. Obviously, I wanted to win the league, and I want to ideally win it by as much as possible. I think we need to go out there with the kind of confidence that we will beat every team that we come across. And that is the level. I think you sort of want to be realistic and say, because obviously we will lose games. That will happen. There'll be days where it just doesn't come off. But if you constantly have that belief that we're the better side and we are going out there to show it, then hopefully we will win the league and get promoted back into the Premier Division.
Which would be great for everyone, I think. Okay, last little question. Obviously, 2020 wasn't brilliant for a lot of people. 2021 hasn't started particularly brilliantly either. So, as first team captain, a message for the club as a whole, without putting you in the position of being a prime minister or anything, but what would you like to say to people of the club?
I think this is a question for my medical advisor.
Next slide, please.
Yeah. No, I think, if you think about last season, the sort of we had a lockdown at the beginning, essentially what we thought would be going into a cricket season. That didn't happen. So we had that lockdown, and then since then, and if you look back, there was just this golden period in the summer of sort of July and August, where we went out and we played cricket. And yes, there were bits where we had to, you had to run off every 6 overs to wipe down the ball, and you can't use sweat or saliva, and that will be the same at the beginning of this season. There are all these rules, but everyone just embraced them. People were keen to play. We had the best availability as a club selection panel for a very long time, because obviously the eagerness to play, and it was brilliant. That kind of came across on the field of every team, I think, where everyone was just so happy to be out and doing something. And hopefully this year that will carry on. We've been locked down kind of all winter. I know that I've gone completely stir crazy. I'm not even sure if this interview is real, if I'm honest. So just looking forward to getting out there and interacting with other human beings, having a beer down the club, and obviously playing some good cricket with your friends. That's what the summer's all about.
Like us, follow us, watch us. It's Stony Stratford Cricket Club.